just like your mother, grandfather, or next door neighbor. These seniors are inspiring people with incredible stories to share, and they love to see you. The smiles you get back are priceless. Delivering with Meals on Wheels is easy, and you don't have to drive like me for it to be quick. You can volunteer your lunch break once a week or just once a month. With 1 in 6 seniors facing hunger and many more living in isolation, your lunch break can make a real difference. So, America, let's do lunch. Volunteer your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
Okay, Simon, what are you wearing right now?
Nothing.
That's right. And what do people normally wear?
Clothes.
Exactly. So now Mommy's going to teach you how to dress yourself. Clothes keep us warm, they look good, and if we go out without them, the neighbors will talk. So it's important to know how to get dressed. Here's how it's done. Underwear always comes first, name tag at the back, then pants, then shirt. Get the first button in the right hole or you have to start all over. If you're wearing a tie, it goes over, round, through, and pull tight. Tuck your shirt into your pants and zip up your flap. Socks going first, then shoes right on right, left on left. With shoelaces, just take the ends, cross them over, switch the loops. The rabbit goes down the hole, pull tight, and you're left with bunny ears.
I love bunnies.
Good to know. Now remember, spots don't go with stripes, socks don't go with sandals, and if you've tucked in your shirt, wear a belt. Got it? Why are your pants on your head?
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But spending just 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush their teeth is easier and could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain. For fun 2-minute videos to watch while brushing, visit 2min2x.org. That's 2min2x.org. Message from the Partnership for Healthy Mouths, Healthy Lives, and the Ad Council.
So you see, son, good manners are very, very important. Someday, many years from now, when you're a grown-up, you'll be a man. And when you are, you should be a gentleman. Do you want me to go through it one more time?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Exactly. Always say please, thank you, you're welcome, and excuse me. Sit up straight, hold doors open for ladies. If a door's shut, then knock first. Don't burp, don't swear, don't speak with your mouth full, don't reach across people's plates, keep your elbows off the table.
What table?
And don't interrupt. While we're at it, don't stare, don't use foul language, don't call people names, but do remember people's names. Always share your toys, play nice, and cover your mouth when you cough or sneeze. On the bus, give up your seat to anyone who has trouble standing. Bottom line, treat others the way you'd like to be treated. Got it?
Got it.
And stop picking your nose.
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But spending just 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush their teeth is easier and could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain. For fun 2-minute videos to watch while brushing, visit 2min2x.org. That's 2min2x.org. A message from the Partnership for Healthy Mouths, Healthy Lives, and the Ad Council.
Hey, there he is. How's it going?
I'm having a stroke.
Are you going to shake my hand or what?
I'm having a stroke.
Wow, you're not even moving your arm.
I'm having a stroke.
Are you okay?
I'm having a stroke.
Your face looks weird too.
I'm having a stroke.
Are you having a seizure or something?
I'm having a stroke.
When someone is having a stroke, they may not be able to say it with words, but their body language will tell you loud and clear.
I'm having a stroke.
You just need to know the sudden signs. Look for FAST, F-A-S-T. F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. Or S, speech difficulty. Then T, time. Time to call 911 immediately, because the sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in their recovery. Know the sudden signs. Face, arm, speech, time. Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American...
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Broadcasting from coast to coast,
city to city, coast to coast.
It's time for the Ryan Hickey Show on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. If it's happening in sports, it's being talked about right here. And here's your host, Ryan Hickey.
Good Thursday morning. Welcome into the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. It is the Ryan Hickey Show with you right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. A snowy Thursday at that, at least here in the Northeast. So a little adventurous trying to come in, a little slower on the roads. And unfortunately, it's only going to get worse. So actually, these next 2 hours are going to be a little interesting. Maybe the Ryan Hickey Show will continue past 11 o'clock if I end up being snowed in here with no place to go. But hopefully that is not the case, and we will be with you here for the next 2 hours, right here as we always are on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network, coming to you live, as we are every single hour of every single show from the Big Italy Pizzeria Studios, with its great pizza, hot heroes, and phenomenal dinners. Check out Big Italy Pizzeria in person in Medford, Joe's Pizzeria in Bayshore, or wherever you are, online at BigItalyPizza.com. A lot to get into today. A lot of storylines here. A lot of NBA that we're going to really dive into. Steph MVP voting. Wanted to get into this early in the week, but should team record impact a way a player is viewed as an MVP candidate? Because Steph Curry right now playing some of the best ball of his career, not just in the NBA this year, but of Steph Curry's career. And as we know, he's had a few very impressive performances. We'll get into that at 9:40. The Eagles. It's kind of weird. I want to get into this in 15 minutes. The Philadelphia Eagles have largely gotten a pass for how they've handled the Carson Wentz situation. A lot of the pushback, a lot of the analysis, a lot of the scorn, if you will, has been directed towards Carson Wentz and the price that the Philadelphia Eagles have asked for. What if we will look, and we'll discuss just the entire handling of the situation by the Eagles. And hey, the favorite team right now, or the Eagles' favorite team, I should say, is the Houston Texans, because they are the only team that's more dysfunctional. And things have gone south in Philly, and it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. Top of the second hour, Anthony Davis. We didn't get into this too much on Monday because, personally, in full disclosure, we didn't know Anthony Davis's injury significance. He was getting the MRI on Monday about his Achilles. Now we know he'll be out 2 to 3 weeks before he will be reevaluated. So assume he'll be out for a lot longer than that. You have to play it safe if you're the Lakers. But with that said, with Anthony Davis now on the shelf for 3 weeks, a month, maybe even longer than that, it's imperative, important, a priority, if you will, to protect LeBron James even more than Anthony Davis. I'll explain what I mean in an hour at 10 Eastern. We'll be joined then by James Herbert, a tremendous CBS Sports NBA reporter, at 10:20 Eastern to get his thoughts on LeBron and the Lakers. How about the Utah Jazz? They win again last night. 20 wins in 21 games. They are going streaky, and the streak continues. They beat the Clippers without Kawhi and Paul George, mind you, but they still win. And again, 20 wins in 21 games. As Frank the Tank would say from old school, we're going streaking. And the Jazz are doing just that. So we'll get James's thoughts on the Jazz as well at 10:20. But I do want to start with some NFL, and I do want to start specifically with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Because really, the biggest talking point in really all the NFL, the big thing everyone's kind of looking at here in the 2021 offseason is the quarterback position, because the quarterback carousel, if you will, it's turning. The wheels are turning. You look at your team, there's only a finite amount of teams that are set at the quarterback position for 2021 and feel confident that their guy will be their guy at the start of the 2021 season. So a lot of quantity on the quarterback market for the first time, really, maybe that we've ever seen before. Because usually quarterbacks are, a rare commodity. You can't really acquire one. For the most part, the thinking was you can only get a franchise quarterback through the draft. Not saying you can get a franchise quarterback now, but there are plenty of options and way more out there than were even last year or really ever before. And the Steelers could be entering the quarterback carousel because their general manager, Kevin Colbert, met with the media yesterday. And essentially, he pulled a Les Snead. And here's what I mean by that. Les Snead, the GM of the Rams, he did a press conference about a month ago, and he was asked about the status of Jared Goff at the time, the Rams quarterback. Could he be the quarterback in 2021? Is there a possibility Jared Goff wouldn't be on the roster in 2021, despite the fact that he signed a massive extension? He was the first overall pick back in 2016. They paid him. He led him to a Super Bowl. Is it possible that the Rams in 2021 could cut Jared Goff and not have him on the roster? Les Snead basically kind of danced around the question in a way. Or I shouldn't say dance around the question. He danced around it in the fact that basically he did everything possible to make it seem like there was anything but a guarantee Jared Goff would be on the roster. Anytime you hear questions about players' futures, what do coaches say? What do GMs say? What do owners say? The most non-committal, generic, vanilla things. Oh, we'd love to have him back. All this coach speak about basically, yeah, we love him. If he wants to come back, we'll have him. They always try to at least make it seem like they're the ones that want the quarterback back and maybe try to paint it as the player doesn't want to come back. Well, Les Snead of the Rams basically put out that, hey, Jared Goff is the quarterback of our team right now on January 18th, let's say, when the press conference was. No guarantees for that. And as we know, a few weeks later, Jared Goff traded to the Lions for Matthew Stafford. Well, Kevin Colbert took a page out of Les Snead's book because yesterday, during his press conference, Steelers GM basically was just as non-committal as Les Snead was. Here, I'll give you a clip here. Here's Kevin Colbert yesterday when asked about could Big Ben return, what does the future look like? Basically, Kevin Colbert said, yeah, it's anything but a guarantee.
He reiterated that to us, that he wants to continue to play. And we told him, quite frankly, we have to look at this current situation. Art Rooney addressed that with Ben's current cap number, some adjustment will have to be made. And we're not negotiating as we sit here and answer this question. Ben Roethlisberger is on the team. Ben Roethlisberger did a lot of really good things last year, and we anticipate that he could still do some good things moving forward. So hopefully there's a way that we can try to figure out and do what's best for the organization and do what's best for Ben. And hopefully he'll be able to see that and feel the same way we do. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
A lot there that is not committing to Ben Roethlisberger in 2021. Now, a lot of it is going to be cap situation. We'll get to here in a second. But they've talked with Ben. They've laid it out there. You had Art Rooney II, the owner of the Steelers, coming out earlier and saying basically, yeah, we'd love to have Ben back, but we can't do it at his current salary. And the Steelers would like to have him back, but there's a lot of questions that they have to worry about with the cap to maybe make it prohibitive for bringing Ben Roethlisberger back. But as you just heard, the general manager of the Steelers, anything but a guarantee Ben Roethlisberger will be back in 2021. And even you had Big Ben come out and say, yeah, I'd like to return. I'd like to go for one more year. So now it's a team that's uncertain if they can have Big Ben back. So I'm curious your thoughts. Love to hear your comments on Facebook, Worldwide Sports Radio Network, Twitter, WWSRN_radio, at Ryan Hickey Show if you want to tune me there directly, or you can comment on the Periscope live stream, which can be found either at Ryan Hickey Show on Twitter or WWSRN_radio. Should the Steelers bring Ben back? Should Ben Roethlisberger be the Steelers starting quarterback in 2021? My answer, I've changed my tune. My answer is actually yes. I thought after the season's over, watching that wild card game we saw in which they get down 28-0 in the first quarter to the Browns, really the last month of the year in December after starting 11-0, really crumble at the finish line and struggle. Big Ben struggled, the offensive line struggled, the running game was non-existent. As you know, they go from 11-0 to out in the first round of the playoffs. So I thought, it'd be best for the Steelers to move on. Go in another direction. Big Ben has given everything he has. It seems like he ran out of gas. It's time, especially with how good that defense is, time to get someone in there that can elevate the offense. But the more I read into it, the more I look at the situation the Steelers are in, and they're in cap hell. We'll get to that in a second. My answer is, yeah, they should absolutely bring him back for 2021 because there's zero other viable options that Pittsburgh could bring in that would be a better substitute for Ben Roethlisberger in 2021. So like I said, you just heard Kevin Colbert discuss it, and you heard me kind of dance around, and we'll get into it now. The biggest reason why the Steelers wouldn't bring Ben Roethlisberger back is not because of play, not because of age. It's because of salary and more related the cap hit that is associated with his salary. So Big Ben, if nothing has changed with his contract, if his contract stays the way it is right now today on February 18th, going into 2021, he will induce a $41.2 million cap hit. Now, he's not getting $41 million per se. He's only getting $19 million. But because of the way the NFL cap works, the Steelers were able to push back salary and bonuses and signing bonuses. They pushed it back, and now that is all coming to a head this year in 2021. So despite the fact that he's making under $20 million, for the cap, he is getting a $41.2 million cap hit, which is the biggest in the NFL in 2021. Think about that. Biggest cap hit in the NFL from a player perspective is Ben Roethlisberger, $41.2 million. So now, there's a few options for the Steelers. If he was to retire this year, if he was to, let's say, get cut, if the Steelers say, we got to cut our losses here, cut bait, we're going to get rid of Big Ben. Well, that doesn't mean that $41.2 million number just disappears. If he was to retire or if he's cut, his cap number in 2021, even though he's not on the team, is still $22 million. And if he does come back in 2021, if the Steelers figure, you know what, this is the best option, if Big Ben wants to come back, the lowest they could possibly negotiate his contract down to where the cap hit would be $23.3 million. And that number, 23.3, is if he takes literally the veteran minimum. So he cuts his salary down to the lowest possible number. So if your boss came up to you and there was whatever your salary is, and there was just, let's say, minimum wage. Your boss said, hey, in order for us to figure out finances, if you want to work here next year, we got to cut your salary from whatever you're making to minimum wage. That's what would have to happen. Even if that does happen, it's still $23 million on the cap for the Steelers. And why is this a big deal? Because I'll make the argument, and I've talked about a lot, the cap is almost non-existent because there are so many different ways to get around that cap to where, sure, if it's 180, there's so many different ways to get that number of your roster under 180, push money to the future. There's all these different mechanics that honestly I don't even understand and I want to bore you with because I'll just confuse myself. I'll confuse you, and it's just bad radio. But why this is so important for Big Ben and how much he will go on the Steelers cap in 2021 is because right now, obviously, as we know, the cap is going to go down because revenues for the league were down because of no attendance, because of the pandemic. Right now, the Steelers are $22 million over the projected cap. That is really right now the projection. It could be a little less, but right now it's in the $22 million range. And they have a ton of free agents. So even though they have a lot of money coming off the books, they still have a lot of money tied up in different players on the team, and they're still $22 million over. So why we just outlined that, yes, finances are going to be the biggest reason why Ben Roethlisberger couldn't return in 2021. Those finances, to me, are also the biggest reason why he has to return if you're the Steelers in 2021. So I'll put it to you this way. Like we just mentioned, the Steelers are in cap hell. $22 million over the projected cap. Ben Roethlisberger, even if he's not on the roster, if he retires or if he's cut, he will the cap will still get hit for $22 million. So you're still having a significant chunk of your cap taken up by a quarterback who's either on the roster or even worse, not on the roster. So with that said, with that $22 million going to be there, whether he's there or not, who could the Steelers bring in that you're going to pay cheaply, mind you, on top of the $22 million that they're giving Ben Roethlisberger, assuming he's not on the team? Who are you going to bring in that talent-wise could outperform Ben in 2021? Because even at age 39, even though he hit the wall in December, to me, he is still the best option the Steelers have in 2021 to make the playoffs. And that is their goal. They've said it. They've stated it after the season multiple times. They are not tanking. 2021 is still to make the playoffs, still to try to win the division, still to try to win a Super Bowl. That is the goal. So what quarterback gives them the best opportunity to do that? In my mind, it is Ben Roethlisberger. He threw 33 touchdowns last year, second most of his career. And I understand. I just said he hit a wall in December. That offense, I wasn't believing in the Steelers offense. You heard me on the show multiple times say Steelers are frauds. Maybe not that harshly. But their offense gave you a lot of concerns. They couldn't run the ball. And when you're asking Big Ben at 38 years old last year to throw the ball 40, 50, 60 times, it's not a winning recipe. And with the cap held there, I don't really see the offensive line getting much better. I don't see the running game improving that much. With that said, who are you bringing in that will play better and elevate this offense more than Ben Roethlisberger did last year? I'll give you some names. I'll give you some options so that way you can kind of mold it over in your head and give me an answer. So if Big Ben's not on the team, the options for the Steelers could be Mason Rudolph, the backup quarterback right now. We've seen him play in limited sample size. He played one game last year, did okay. But as you know, Big Ben missed all but basically a game and a half in 2019. Mason Rudolph played a good amount. Wasn't that great. Nothing to write home about. So Mason Rudolph is an option. I'm not feeling that. Dwayne Haskins signed to a very minimum contract, basically a low risk, high reward situation, if you will. Are we trusting Dwayne Haskins? Got cut in the middle of the year last year by the Washington football team because he couldn't figure out he couldn't be professional. Now you're going to put your eggs in the Dwayne Haskins basket for 2021, trying to make the playoffs? I'm not feeling that. No way. Mitch Trubisky? Really, Mitch Trubisky or Big Ben? That's an easy one. Tyrod Taylor? No way. Not for me. I'm not taking that one. Ryan Fitzpatrick? How about Fitzmagic? Maybe the biggest upside of all these names I just listed. But at the same time, why has Ryan Fitzpatrick been a journeyman quarterback? Because in his career, he has had some highs. But every year, he also has some low of the lows. He is inconsistent. He can play a tremendous game, throw for 5 touchdowns, 400 yards, and be the reason you win. The next week, he'll throw 3 interceptions in the first quarter and be the reason you lose. He's not consistent, never has been. And now you're going to put your eggs in his basket to try to make the playoffs in 2021? I'll pass on that. I'll take Big Ben. How about drafting a quarterback? Right? cheap contract. Again, you're already paying Ben, if he's not on the roster, $22 million next year. So drafting a quarterback, you'll have a young, cheap quarterback, a great asset there going forward. The only issue is the Steelers draft 24th. Are you getting a franchise quarterback at 24? Not to mention, a ton of teams now ahead of you are in the quarterback market trying to get someone. So if you're going to take Kyle Trask, that's not really a guy that I would get excited about if I'm the Steelers to hitch my wagons to in 2021, with the goal being the playoffs. Because and finally, they could trade for a quarterback. You know, Sam Darnold's out there. Maybe Jimmy G gets dealt. Sure, there are options, but at the same time, the Steelers don't have, I don't think they would give up draft capital when they're so strapped to the cap to give up, cheaper labor to bring in a guy with still a decent contract that, again, is going to put them in cap hell. So you look at the options out there for the Steelers if they want to depart from Ben Roethlisberger, and it is ugly. Ugh. No, thank you. So I have changed my tune 100% looking at the financials of the Steelers. Thinking, you know what? I thought it was Big Ben's last game in Pittsburgh after that wild card game. You see him sitting on the bench, kind of almost look like contemplating his future, or maybe realizing at the time that, wow, this might be it. But you look at the Steelers' financials, how they're in big trouble, let's say, cap-wise. The fact that you're going to pay Ben Roethlisberger whether he's on the roster or not in 2021. I just don't see how you pay Ben Roethlisberger to not be there, then try to somehow, you're not going to find someone with more talent than him that can elevate the offense more than he could at a cheap bargain price, which is what you're going to need for where you are cap-wise. So yes, I understand the salary cap number that Big Ben is supposed to get in 2021 of $41.2 million is prohibitive for bringing him back. There's no shot in hell he'll be on the roster next year getting that $41.2 million cap. They will figure something out. With that said, because the money is prohibitive and the biggest reason why there's a question about Ben Roethlisberger coming back in 2021, my thinking is also at the same time, because the money is so tight, that's the reason why you have to bring Ben Roethlisberger back for 2021 if the goal is the playoffs, if the goal is to still win. And the Steelers give you every reason why to think that is the case. So I'm curious your thoughts. Facebook, Worldwide Sports Network. Twitter, WWSRN_radio, at Ryan Hickey Show, also on Twitter. Should the Steelers bring Ben Roethlisberger back? Would that be their best option to make the playoffs next year? Or is there a different option on the market that's a free agent, that's in the draft, that you think could elevate this offense and be the reason why Pittsburgh makes the playoffs next year? So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Facebook, Worldwide Sports Network, Twitter, WWSRN_radio, at Ryan Hickey Show, also on Twitter. So we get your thoughts, and when we come back, the Texans have been a total dumpster fire about how they've handled this Deshaun Watson situation. Let's not sleep on a team that's equally been as dysfunctional, that haven't really got their just due. Oh, don't worry. We will bring them to the limelight next. It is the Ryan Hickey Show right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Hi, I'd like to report a bear hug.
Uh-huh, okay.
Well, we were building a bonfire, and I saw some, dry brush and leaves around, so, I said to move the bonfire somewhere else, and out of nowhere, Smokey Bear shows up and hugs me.
So you noticed some wildfire hazards and moved your bonfire to a safer location.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Smokey, all right. He likes it when people help prevent wildfires. It hits him close to home. Not everybody gets the hug, my friend. So that's pretty special to get a hug from Smokey Bear.
So it was him. Hey, guys, I told you it was Smokey.
Okay, well, congratulations, my friend. And thanks for calling. There are many ways to prevent a wildfire. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
Hope you enjoyed your meal. And I just want to say, he's lucky to have a brother like you.
Lucky? Caring for my brother is far from easy. Waking up every day, lifting him from the bed to the wheelchair to the car to get him to therapy on time, it's no small task between the doctors and the diagnosis, but nothing can disable this love. This is my big brother, my hero. He's part of me, like my arms and legs. So I'll be his. See, there's no time for tired. This starts again tomorrow. He'll be waiting for me. I wake up for him. I know he needs me, but I'm the lucky one. Even though I need help now and then.
If you're caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community, or call 877-333-5885. Caregiving Resource Center. Support for your strength. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
People been saying to your friend, get a different face, and posting on their feed, they're super ugly. The things they say to them online are cruel and they're not true. So tell your friend, I'll stand up for you. Don't worry, I know what to do. Oh, tell the world I see with an emoji to stop the bullies.
Know someone who's being bullied online? Send the witness emoji. It looks like an eye in a speech bubble, and it's in the symbol section near the clocks in your phone. You'll let the world know it isn't cool, and you'll let your friend know you care. Learn more about the witness emoji at eyewitnessbullying.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Welcome back to the Ryan Hickey Show, right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
And welcome back on into the Ryan Hickey Show, right here with you on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Talking Ben Roethlisberger to start the show. Should the Steelers bring him back? Adam Schefter tweeted this out 15 minutes ago. NFL informed teams today the salary cap this season will be a minimum of 180. Thought was there was some prevailing thoughts out there that maybe in between 175 and 185, which still is almost $30 million less than maybe what was projected to be for 2021 before a little thing called the coronavirus came into America and basically shut the whole world down as we know it for the last 11 months. So that was always kind of projection. Hey, the cap is grown every year. It goes with the salary. It goes with the salary. It goes with the revenue that comes in every year for the NFL. And as we know, unfortunately, the NFL salary, again, I don't know why salary's on the brain here. The NFL revenue was down, obviously, because our pal COVID-19 has been rampant. So minimum of 1A, which was a little more breathing room maybe for the Steelers, but either way, the Steelers have been non-committal on Ben Roethlisberger's future because they don't financially know if they can bring him back. And yes, even if he's not on the team, the Steelers still have to incur his cost on the cap and still be about $22 million, even if he's not on the team. If he retires today, still $22 million the Steelers can't get rid of on the cap for 2021. So he's going to be basically essentially on the books, whether he's there or not. So either you're going to pay him to not be there and then still have to bring someone in on the cheap that can be better than him, or you'll suck it up, kind of restructure the contract and bring him back at a slightly higher rate than what he would get if he retired. But personally, I think that's the best option because when you look at talent-wise, option-wise, he still gives you the best bang for your buck if you're the Steelers. The goal for the Steelers is playoffs in 2021. They're not tanking. Their defense is too good to tank anyway. So they're trying to go playoffs next year. One more year, if you will, for Ben Roethlisberger, then transition to another quarterback. I think that's the best move. Bring him back in 2021 because when the options are Ben Roethlisberger or Mason Rudolph, Ben Roethlisberger or Dwayne Haskins or Mitch Trubisky or Tyrod Taylor or Ryan Fitzpatrick or drafting a quarterback at 24. Yeah, Ben Roethlisberger looks way more palatable as your Steelers starting quarterback in 2021. He looks even more appetizing than he was after the Steelers lost to the Browns. I thought he was done, personally. I didn't think he was going to come back. I thought it would be wise for the Steelers to kind of rip the Band-Aid off, move forward and kind of start looking for the next franchise quarterback. But finances do have an impact. And I think this year, especially in 2021, it is prohibitive from finding your replacement for Big Ben. And I'd rather roll with Ben than any of those guys I just listed. So I'm curious your thoughts. Facebook again, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. If you have a thought, Twitter, WWSRN_radio. At Ryan Hickey Show, also on Twitter, if you want to tweet us there directly, if you want to give us your thoughts there. We'll take your Steelers thoughts. Should they move on from Ben Roethlisberger or should they bring him back? Up to you. You hear my thoughts. I think they should absolutely bring him back for 2021. What do you think? We'll get your thoughts throughout the show. I do want to transition, second the NFL here, but I do want to talk about another dumpster fire in the NFL. Because like I said, the quarterback carousel is spinning. Woo, that wheel is spinning. It's spinning tough. We saw it already start with the Rams trading for Matthew Stafford, that blockbuster deal. And we expect another one to go down, at the very minimum, another one, with Deshaun Watson and the Texans. They have single-handedly screwed that situation up. The owner, Cal McNair, his right-hand man, Jack Easterby, have single-handedly driven a wedge between the organization and Deshaun Watson. And now Deshaun Watson wants out, and it seems like there is no shot in hell he's coming back in 2021 as a Houston Texan. So they're going to have to trade him all because of their own doing. Not because he was frustrated that they weren't winning, not because he didn't want to be there. No. Because he saw the dysfunction of the team in the front office, didn't like the direction, gave them some suggestions. They went basically the total opposite direction of what he said. And he said, okay, I'm out of here. I'm done. So we've talked at length and a lot about how the Texans just have screwed this up. But we haven't talked about another team that on a lesser scale, with a lesser quarterback, is doing the same exact thing with little to no attention on the organization. I think it's time to bring some light to that. And that I'm talking about is the Philadelphia Eagles. Because how Jeffrey Lurie, the owner, and he's involved in this, how Howie Roseman, the general manager, have bungled this entire Carson Wentz situation should be headline-grabbing material, again, if it wasn't for the Texans. Houston has been a shield, has been a cover to them, because on the same scale, but with a lesser quarterback, they have just flat out played themselves. The Eagles have played themselves. And this situation in Philadelphia is going to get a lot worse before it gets better. You thought you hit rock bottom, Eagles fans. Bottom is still going down. You haven't reached there yet. And here's what I mean by this. Let's look at what happened to Philadelphia this past calendar year. Let's start with the draft. That's really where things started to go haywire. In the draft, coming off a year in which they made the playoffs, Carson Wentz lifted a skeleton crew of a team to the playoffs in 2019. They lose in the first round. He gets knocked out in the first quarter with an unfortunate concussion. But injuries, the offensive line, receiver, running back, that team was decimated. And Carson Wentz, to his credit, and really can't be argued, in that month of December, lifted the Eagles to the playoffs. So since then, what did the Eagles do? Well, instead of addressing positional need in the draft, they decided in the second round, we're going to take a quarterback. We're going to draft Jalen Hurts from Oklahoma in the second round in the playoffs. We're going to insist that, hey, this has no bearing on Carson Wentz's future. Carson as a quarterback, we have affinity for backup quarterbacks. We love our backup quarterbacks. So what we're going to do is we're going to think ahead. We're going to say, you know what? We're going to draft a backup quarterback just to be safe. And they do that with Jalen Hurts. Again, insistent that this does not affect Carson Wentz's status as a starter. What happens? We go into the season. Eagles go 4-11-1, a total, just garbage of a season. Flush it down the toilet. So what happens? Eagles, as we know, fire Doug Peterson. Well, why do they fire Doug Peterson? 4-11-1, sure, not great. But in part, they fired Doug Peterson because he wanted to roll with Jalen Hurts in 2021. He had enough of Carson Wentz. And remember, Carson Wentz benched the last 4 games of the regular season for Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, personally, I'll admit, played better than I expected. I really didn't think he was an NFL quarterback, to be completely frank. I thought his style was conducive of college, and even still, he kind of struggled in college at some of the NFL level throws and reads that he tried to do. So I didn't think he'd have success. He played better than I thought. And I think he maybe even played better than Doug Peterson thought, because going to 2021, when they were discussing the future, Doug said, I want to roll with Jalen Hurts. Troy Aikman at least kind of backed this up. He said he spoke to Doug Peterson directly, and Troy Aikman gathered, without Doug Peterson directly saying it, that Doug wanted to roll with Jalen Hurts, and that the front office, especially Jeffrey Lurie, the owner, wanted to roll with Carson Wentz. So what happened? Doug Peterson fired for the quarterback he wanted to use, Hurts over Wentz. Jeffrey Lurie, in announcing the firing of Doug Peterson, made a note, hey, the next coaching staff, whoever is hired, they will work with Carson Wentz to get him back on track. That was the goal. The goal in hiring the next head coach was to get Carson Wentz back on the right track, because Jeffrey Lurie at least believes 2020 for Carson Wentz was a one-off. He looks at 2017, 2018, 2019. That's a Carson Wentz we know. That's the Carson Wentz we paid for. 2020, that was just one-off. Not, a lot of things gone wrong. He had a bad year, but we believe he can get back to that 2017 level, and that's more of who Carson Wentz is, not the 2020 version of Carson Wentz. So what happens? They hire Nick Sirianni, who essentially is a yes man. I didn't really get a chance to see this too much on the air when it happened, because there's a lot of stuff going on when he was hired. But Nick Sirianni, in my mind, is hired to be fired. And here's what I mean by that. The cap situation for the Eagles is awful. Awful. Second worst in all the NFL in terms of being over the cap, in terms of having these massive contracts on the books that they got to get rid of. So you're going to a situation where the talent is going to be stripped from the team. You're going to a situation where the owner of the team wants Carson Wentz to be the quarterback. We won't say all the players, but I think the team and the head coach that was just there wanted Jalen Hurts to be the starting quarterback and felt he fit the offense better, gave them a better chance to win. So you don't have a say in the quarterback because the owner gets what he wants. The owner is hiring you to fix Carson Wentz. So you're forced to play Wentz as your quarterback. And not to mention, well, you have Harry Roseman, the GM, who has swung and missed on some historically bad draft picks of late. And not to mention, you're in a city in Philadelphia where the fans don't tolerate losing. So honestly, Nick Sirianni, I believe, will be fired in 2 to 3 years. He has zero chance of success in Philadelphia. With that said, though, he was hired because he came from the Frank Reich tree. He was the Colts offensive coordinator, with Frank Reich being the head coach. Frank Reich, if you remember, was the offensive coordinator for the Eagles in 2016 and 2017, two of Carson Wentz's best years of his career. 2017, he was going to win the MVP before he tore his ACL. Obviously, they won the Super Bowl that year anyway. But Nick Sirianni was hired because he comes from the Frank Reich tree, and hopefully bring some of that wisdom to fix Carson Wentz. And now, let's be honest, too, no experience really. He wasn't calling the plays with the Colts. No head coaching experience. He's going to be yes man. Listen to what Harry Roseman has to say. Listen to what Jeffrey Lurie has to say. Something that Doug Peterson, apparently, according to reports, got sick of. So, okay. To quickly rehash what we just said. They draft Jalen Hurts in the second round. Carson Wentz is going to be the quarterback. They say Jalen Hurts is not affecting Carson Wentz's job status. Carson Wentz struggles. They bench Carson Wentz. Doug Peterson, that coach, wants to roll Jalen Hurts in 2021. He is fired in part for that. Now you hire a head coach to fix Carson Wentz, come in and kind of get back on the right track. Well, Carson Wentz says, I'm out of here. I'm done with this organization. I don't like the direction we're going. I don't like how things are operating. I want a fresh start. I want out. So you fire a head coach because you wanted to go with a different quarterback. You hire a new head coach to specifically fix Carson Wentz and get him back to that 2017 level. And now you have Carson Wentz saying, thanks, but no thanks. I'm done here. I need a fresh start. I need to go somewhere else to get my career back on track. So now the Eagles are forced to trade Carson Wentz. And what happens? Remember that initial report when he was kind of first, not openly being shopped, but the Eagles were listening to offers. What was the offers the Eagles wanted back? They wanted a similar deal that the Rams gave for Matthew Stafford. They wanted 2 first-round picks for Carson Wentz. Guess how that went? Oh, boy. Did not go over well, because guess what? Carson Wentz is still on the team. And guess how many first-round picks Harry Roseman has been offered for Carson Wentz? According to reports, not even 1. Forget 2. He hasn't even been offered 1 first-round pick. Ron Jaworski, last week, according to his sources that he said around the league, the best offer the Eagles have gotten so far for Carson Wentz is 2 second-round picks. That's it. Not 2 first-round picks. Not 1 first-round pick, 1 second-round pick. 2 second-round picks. For a guy taking number 2 overall in the draft, to a guy you paid a contract extension to, think he's going to be the franchise quarterback, to a guy you fired the head coach for to placate him, you hired a new head coach to fix him, and now he says, oh, I'm done. I'm out of here. And now, the topper, the icing on the cake, is that Les Bone, a very well-respected Philadelphia Inquirer reporter, was talking to an NFL management source yesterday, and he put this tweet out. The NFL management source believed that, essentially, the Bears aren't going to trade for Carson Wentz if he doesn't want to go there. Carson Wentz does have a no trade clause. You can't veto any trade. But if you're the Bears, if you somehow find out Carson Wentz is not interested in going to your team, you're not going to trade him. You're not going to trade for him, right? You're not going to bring someone in that doesn't want to be there. You're not going to give up something to bring someone in that doesn't want to be there. So that means if the Bears bow out, it's only going to be the Colts that right now seem to be interested in Carson Wentz, which is going to drive the price significantly down. If it's just the Colts, man, that price is dropping even from 2 second-round picks. So that's what one of the management sources said. Basically, the price is going to go down for Carson Wentz. And the management source, not with the Eagles, but with a different organization, told Les Bowen of the Philadelphia Inquirer that he believes the Eagles should draft a quarterback at number 6. He's thinking, in theory, you'll never be this high again. If the quarterback is there, take him. So could you imagine, ready, if this happens? Now, this is just a source. This is not what the Eagles are going to do, but this is a possibility that if the source was in the Eagles' position, this is what he would do. He would draft a quarterback at number 6. So could you imagine if the Eagles last year draft Jalen Hurts in the second round, insist that it won't affect Carson Wentz's status as a starter? This is just a breaking in case of emergency sort of situation where if Carson Wentz gets hurt again, we can have a viable backup. But Carson, don't worry, you're our guy. Well, guess what? That doesn't work because Carson Wentz is affected. It messes with his game. How much we don't know, a lot of factors going into it, but he had statistically the worst year of his career in 2020. What happens? That bad year leads to him getting benched the final 4 games. Jalen Hurts comes in, plays better than expected. That leads to that current head coach, Doug Peterson, wanting to roll with Jalen Hurts in 2021. The owner says, hell no. We're going with my guy, Carson Wentz. So guess what? If you don't think Wentz is the guy, boom, you're out. Doug Peterson fired. Nick Sirianni, hey, come on in. You're hired. Your goal, your number one duty, fix Carson Wentz, get him back to the 2017 self. All of a sudden, Carson Wentz says, you know what? I'm waving the white flag here. I want out. I'm good. Philly, this situation is not for me. It's too toxic. I need to get out of here. Now you're about to get pennies on the dollar for a franchise quarterback you thought you had. Taking number 2 overall in the draft in 2016. You gave a $100 million contract extension to before the 2019 season. And now you're about to, scrape a second-round pick for him, barely? And now, the capper of all cappers, you're going to draft a quarterback this year to replace the quarterback who came in last year, who ended up being the reason why your current franchise quarterback in Carson Wentz wants out. So you're going to draft a quarterback to replace Jalen Hurts, who came in and outplayed Carson Wentz and basically was the reason why Doug Peterson was fired and why Carson Wentz wants to trade. What the hell is going on in Philly? That is dysfunction at the highest level. Have we ever seen a situation bungled this badly before? And again, the Eagles, no one is happier in the Eagles organization that the Texans are just lighting themselves on fire every single day in a new way because that just takes the attention off of them. We always talk about Carson Wentz and, oh man, look at this price. No way he's getting that. Man, Carson Wentz, could he go to the Bears? Could he go to the Colts? Would he be good with the Bears? Could he revive his contract or revive his career with the Colts? We never talk about it from the Eagles' perspective of how we got here, one, and how they have just totally botched this entire situation. They're going to go from having an MVP franchise quarterback on their team 3 years ago to now being lucky to get 1 second-round pick for the guy and possibly replacing the quarterback that eventually kind of kicked the starting quarterback out of town. I mean, they made a head coaching change to keep Carson Wentz in Philly, and he still said, I'm out. My goodness. What a mess. So that's why I said earlier, Philly, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. Because they're not going to recoup the proper assets that they should get for a quarterback of Carson Wentz's stature. They are selling him, by the way, mind you. They are selling him at his lowest possible value. This is like if the Bears had Mitch Trubisky under contract and were trying to trade Mitch Trubisky. You're not going to get a bag of balls back. So you are now selling your franchise quarterback or forced to trade your franchise quarterback coming off of his worst year, not only his career, one of the worst years a quarterback has had in 2020. And now you could either roll with the backup who supplanted Carson Wentz or draft another guy to replace Jalen Hurts who replaced Carson Wentz. And you're doing so with an owner, with an owner who wants Carson Wentz, but with a general manager who's been enabled, who has swung and missed historically bad in the draft of late. So now you're going to let him draft another quarterback. This is just dysfunction written all over. What a total mess. They're not as dysfunctional as the Texans. And that's only because Deshaun Watson is a better quarterback than Carson Wentz. But this is similar proportions. This is brutal, man. This is so brutal. And in Philly, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. That's for sure. So here's your thoughts. Facebook, Worldwide Sports Network. Twitter, WWSRN_radio, at Ryan Hickey Show on Twitter. If you want to comment on the Periscope live stream as well, feel free to do that. Which team is a bigger mess? Which team is more dysfunctional? Is it the Houston Texans with Deshaun Watson? Or is it the Philadelphia Eagles with Carson Wentz? Both have just totally shot themselves in the foot. Both have handled this as poorly as you could handle this. Honestly. The only difference is Deshaun Watson is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL that every team wants. Carson Wentz coming off the worst year of his career statistically. Texans basically almost spiting Deshaun Watson with every move they make. The Eagles catering to Carson Wentz for every move they make. Doesn't matter. Both quarterbacks, same thing, they want out. Texans or Eagles? Which one is still more dysfunctional in your mind? We'll get your thoughts. Facebook, Worldwide Sports Network, Twitter, WWSRN_radio, at Ryan Hickey Show, also on Twitter. And when we come back, we'll sprinkle a little NBA talk. James Herbert from CBSSports.com will join us in about half hour, 10:20 Eastern. We'll still have to talk LeBron, why it's imperative for me, in my mind, LeBron James has to be the focal point. His health is right now more important than even Anthony Davis's, despite the fact Anthony Davis is hurt. But when we come back, Steph Curry having a hell of a season, to say the least. Should he be considered for the MVP? Or, more frankly, I should ask, should a team record discount a player from being considered for the MVP? We'll discuss that next. It is the Ryan Hickey Show right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Edward Lehman has been a trusted insurance advisor for over 16 years with insurance solutions for auto, home, commercial, life, and retirement. He's located at 54 Sunnyside Boulevard, Suite H in Plainview. That's just 1,000 feet south of 495. Local agent, local advice. The time to think about insurance is before you need it. So do yourself a favor, and before you pay your next insurance bill, give Ed and his team a call, 516-935-3900, or visit them online at www.allstate.com/EL. Edward H. Lehman Insurance is your trusted insurance advisor.
Be fearless at MMA Long Island and Seituha Karate. Located at 28 Colt Court in Ronkonkoma, MMA Long Island is the martial arts school for you if you want to learn combat-proven techniques, build confidence, discipline, and self-esteem while learning real martial arts to fight back against bullies, predators, and peer pressure. MMA Long Island offers group and private lessons for all ages and levels in traditional Goju-Ryu Karate, MMA, and self-defense. MMA Long Island is one of Long Island's most affordable martial arts schools. There are no promotion, belt, or membership fees, and family discounts are available. All classes are taught by 7th degree black belt Sensei John Benedict with over 30 years teaching experience. So whether you want to get in the ring or protect yourself and your family, MMA Long Island can help you reach your goals. Visit MMALongIsland.com. That's MMALongIsland.com, or call or text 516-381-9660. That's 516-381-9660.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Welcome back to the Ryan Hickey Show, right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Hopefully you're checking yourself. It is the Ryan Hickey Show with you right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Talking a lot of NFL to start, I do want to kind of switch to the NBA. Because we have an MVP race that really is heating up so far. I know we're still early in the season. Trust me, no definitives have been made for sure. But I want to talk about at least who is in the conversation. Because one player that absolutely should be in the conversation so far, that I don't really think he's getting the respect he deserves, Steph Curry. Now, look, I understand that the name value itself, of course, he should be considered. Of course, he's one of those players who's done it before, that it's easy to throw his name in there, right? Like, it's not one of those players where we haven't really seen them play up to this standard before, and we're kind of wary a little bit if can they keep it up. But with a player of Steph Curry's caliber, who's already had the track record he has so far, easy to throw his name in MVP consideration, and his play alone should warrant that. 29.9 points per game so far for Steph Curry through the season, third in the NBA. 140 made threes. Shocker. First in the NBA, shooting almost 50% from the field, 49.9 to be exact. He is close, right? 29.9 points per game, 49.9 field goal percentage. He is close to averaging a 30.50-40-90 club, shooting 50% from the field, over 40% from three, over 90% from the line. He is 0.1 points per game short, 0.1% of field goal percentage made. I hope that makes sense. Of joining that club. Only one other player in the history of the NBA has done that. Steph Curry. 2015, 26 in the year. He was the unanimous MVP. 73-win season for the Warriors, if you recall. So, yeah, he is having one of the best years of his career, and he has had an incredible career so far. So it should be easy to say Steph Curry should be in the MVP conversation, right? Just those numbers alone. How he's played so far shouldn't even be a question. We shouldn't even have this as a topic, but we do. Why is that? Well, it's for something that is out of Steph Curry's control, and that is his MVP. Oh, I'm sorry, that is his team record. Because the Warriors right now are 16-13, 7th in the West. So should he be in the MVP conversation with guys like LeBron James, Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic? My answer is yes, because I honestly don't care about team record. For me, what my standard is for the MVP voting is about consistent greatness throughout the entire season. Sure, team record has an impact because obviously if you're a better record, you're playing in some more important games that maybe mean something. Sure, obviously supporting cast can help because if you have other players, for example, like LeBron James, you can kind of rely on Anthony Davis on a nightly basis. Or if you can have Anthony Davis kind of take some pressure off of you defensively, that obviously can elevate your game. But they shouldn't also be discounting factors. And that's what I think is happening here with Steph Curry. Because sure, because the Warriors are 16-13, because they're on that 7-8 seed line, probably in a play-in situation right now, he is not getting the respect he deserves for the MVP voting. And Steph is aware of this. He was asked last week, Steph, should team record impact MVP voting? Should it have an impact and whether a guy is getting recognized or not? Here's what he had to say.
It always has and it always will. And like I said, those narratives, you could always make judgments based on what you value and what you see and numbers and wins and losses and the eye test and all that type of stuff. It's kind of what makes the beauty of that award in general, because everybody has a different take on what it means.
So you have it. He admits, hey, record has, a play into the award. It's a lot about narrative per se, if you will. But for me, it's about consistent greatness. If Steph Curry can continue the level he's playing at right now, he absolutely should be considered and probably even win the MVP award. But like I just mentioned, he is not getting the respect he deserves. And the reason why we're talking about this today is because not a lot of people see it like I do. And here's what I will reference. So last week, ESPN did a straw poll of 100 media members asking them, what is your MVP vote if the season stopped right now? So this is about a quarter of the way through the season last week. Well, LeBron, no surprise, number one, 54 first place votes out of 100. Joel Embiid, number two, he had 23. Nikola Jokic had 18 first place votes at number three. So LeBron, Embiid, Jokic, 1, 2, 3 from this ESPN poll where they, asked media members from all over the world, all over different markets and all over different outlets. LeBron, Embiid, Joker. Well, where is Steph Curry? Because we just gave you the numbers. He deserves to be in the top three. He's not 4. He's not 5, 6. He's 7th. And again, it's early. I understand it's a quarter way through the season. Don't get me wrong. But 7th, receiving just one first place vote. Despite the fact, again, 29.9 points a game, third in the NBA, most made threes in the NBA, shooting almost 50% from the floor. And he is one more made shot away from joining a 30-point, 50, 40, 90 club, something that only one other person in the history of the NBA has ever done, Steph Curry himself, when he won the unanimous MVP 5 years ago. Like, why is there disrespect to, and why are we allowing team record to overshadow accomplishments on the court? Because let's quickly look at some other MVP candidates. LeBron James, hell of a year. I would personally, if the year ended right now, I would vote for LeBron James, full disclosure. 25.7 points per game. Second highest career shooting percentage from three, 37.8%. He's improving his shot. He's played in every game the Lakers have played in so far, and the Lakers are the second best record in the West behind the Jazz. Joel Embiid, averaging almost 30 points per game, 29.7. He has career highs in field goal percentage, three-point percentage, free throw percentage. Sixers, again, number one in the East, 19-10 record. And more importantly, biggest thing for Embiid is his record on the court. The Sixers are 18-5. Off the court, they're 1-5. So as you could see, the Sixers has it as Embiid goes. If he's on the court, they are great. If not, they're in trouble. And then Nikola Jokic having a great season. 27.4 points per game. Impressively, top 10 in points per game, rebounds per game, assists per game. He's almost redefining the game, what he's doing from the center position, dishing the ball out, kind of almost being the point man of the offense. But look at what I just said. I just want to focus on Jokic here for a second. He was third in the MVP voting, right? Behind LeBron, behind Embiid, Jokic was 3. Well, the Nuggets are 15-13. They actually have a worse record than the Warriors right now. So why is Jokic getting this MVP love, getting this respect, but Steph Curry isn't? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. These numbers aren't pedestrian. It's not Steph living on his name as to why we should put him in the MVP voting. He's having close to one of the best seasons of his career. Give this man some love, please. And the reason why he's not is because the Warriors are 16-13. Again, he was 7th in the first edition of the ESPN straw poll last week for MVP voting. 7th. He's having a hell of a year. He is the only option. And so even more impressive, because you look at LeBron, he has ID when he's on the court. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen, but he had ID for a good amount of time when the straw poll was conducted. Embiid has Simmons. Jokic has Jamal Murray. Who does Steph Curry have, by the way? Draymond Green? Andrew Wiggins? Kelly Oubre? Like, what are we doing here? This is not the Warriors when you had Steph, Clay, and KD. This is not the Warriors when you have Steph and Clay. Steph is doing it by himself. He is the number one option. He is the only option. So yeah, can we give this guy some love, please? I understand, look, we have a long way to go. But if he continues these numbers, there's no reason why he should not be in the conversation. Just get in the conversation. Record be damned. Russell Westbrook won the MVP a few years ago when he averaged a triple-double for the season. The Thunder were a 6th seed. Like, it's not always the best player on the best team that should get the MVP. Who are the most consistent greatness throughout the entire season? If that is Steph, give him the award. I don't care if the Warriors don't win another game. If he puts up these numbers, if he continues to play the way he is, and the Warriors lose every single game the rest of the year, he should still get the MVP if the others fall off. It's ridiculous. It's just like trying to equate, or trying to say Deshaun Watson isn't a good quarterback because the Texans went 4-12. And trust me, unfortunately, for my detriment, live on Twitter. We're constantly frustrated. It's the app by far I use the most out of anything. I am on there way too much. And it almost rots your brain because there are plenty of people out there that say, Deshaun Watson is not good. Why would I want my team to trade for him? They were 4-12 last year. Without watching a single snap of Deshaun Watson, without recognizing or even caring that Deshaun Watson was a lone bright spot on that team, they say this guy sucks because the team sucks. Well, Steph Curry, that's not the case. It wasn't the case with Deshaun Watson. It's not the case now with Steph Curry and the Warriors. Just because the record isn't one of the best 2 or 3 records in the conference doesn't mean that he all of a sudden should be written off for the MVP. Give this man some love because he deserves it. It's crazy that we're making a pitch for Steph. It's not voter fatigue, where he's won 2 or 3 years in a row and it's like, all right, enough. Let's give it to someone else. He's won 2. They were back-to-back, and it hasn't been since 2015, 2016. He deserves recognition. That's all. Recognition. So I'm curious your thoughts. You hear the numbers. You hear how he stacks up to the rest of the MVP candidates. The only issue is they don't have the second best record in the West like the Lakers do. They don't have the best record in the East like the Sixers do. That's why he's getting punished. That's why he's getting penalized, and I don't like it. So curious your thoughts. Should Steph Curry get MVP consideration? Not giving him the award right now. There's still so much time to go. But could we get this man's name in the conversation? Could we give him more respect than having him 7th in initial voting poll? Come on. We'll get James Herbert's thoughts here in 20 minutes where he would put Steph Curry. I wonder if he was actually, we'll even ask if he was even in this poll. I'm curious his thoughts. But when we come back, Anthony Davis is going to be out for a significant, decent amount of time for the Lakers, we'll say. Obviously, his health is very important for the future and the championship hopes of the Lakers. So getting him back, to 100% is obviously extremely important. I'm going to make the case, I'm going to explain why, even though he is the one injured, LeBron James' health should be the bigger concern for the Lakers going forward. I'll explain what I mean next. It is the Ryan Hickey Show right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Edward Lehman has been a trusted insurance advisor for over 16 years with insurance solutions for auto, home, commercial, life, and retirement. He's located at 54 Sunnyside Boulevard, Suite H in Plainview. That's just 1,000 feet south of 495. Local agent, local advice. The time to think about insurance is before you need it. So do yourself a favor, and before you pay your next insurance bill, give Ed and his team a call, 516-935-3900, or visit him online at www.allstate.com/EL. Edward H. Lehman Insurance is your trusted insurance advisor.
Hi, this is Terry Crews, actor, former football player, game show host, father of 5, and all-around big dude. I'm also an expert on drama. I know all kinds of drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids. There's the bad kind, like season-ending injuries. There's the necessary kind, like having an agent in Hollywood. And there's silly drama, like the drama around my percolating pectorals. And then there's the drama you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your high school diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org.
Or text diploma to 97779. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop to opt out. That's diploma to 97779. And leave the drama to actors like me.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her.
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge.
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! It's now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend.
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Welcome back to the Ryan Hickey Show, right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
And welcome back into the Ryan Hickey Show with you right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network, coming to you live, as we always are, from the Big Italy Pizzeria Studios. Great pizza, hot heroes, and phenomenal dinners. Check out Big Italy Pizzeria in person in Medford, Joe's Pizza in Bay Shore, or wherever you are online at BigItalyPizza.com. James Herbert, CBSSports.com NBA reporter, will join us in 20 minutes from now, 15 minutes from now. Is Steph getting disrespected on the MVP conversation? The Utah Jazz are streaking. 20 wins out of the last 21 games. We'll discuss, are they peaking too early? How about that? We'll get James's thoughts as well. And also, we'll get his thoughts on the next conversation we're about to have. Because really, the biggest storyline so far in the NBA happened on Sunday night, and that was Anthony Davis injuring his Achilles, technically a calf strain. But as we know now, he will be out at the earliest until the All-Star break gets over that ends on March 10th. So right now, if he comes back right after that All-Star break is over, he'll miss about 9 games at least. The Lakers, I think they'll be wise. I think they'll be smart. They should hold Anthony Davis out for a lot longer than that. So with that said, despite the fact that Anthony Davis is the one injured, right? The Anthony Davis is the one with the Achilles injury. He's the one that is on the shelf right now. The Lakers have to be more concerned about LeBron James' health during this stretch than Anthony Davis. Here's what I mean by that. I have no doubts the Lakers will kind of use this as a warning with Anthony Davis and be as safe as possible. Ensure that he will return when he's fully healthy, not rush him back, especially as we see with an Achilles with Kevin Durant. If he returns too soon, he was with the Warriors in the finals. You see what can happen. So you have a calf strain, exactly what Kevin Durant had, could turn to a blown Achilles, and you're out for the year. So the Lakers, I have no doubts, will be safe with Anthony Davis, err on the side of caution, and keep him out probably even longer than they should in order to ensure that by the time the playoffs come around, he'll be fully healthy. But with that said, you can't forget about LeBron James, and you have to prevent him from getting overworked in that stretch. Because there's a lot of factors right now working against LeBron in terms of his health that you can't just fall asleep on. And if you do, you'll be in even bigger trouble here because you'll lead LeBron to getting run down. So here's what I mean by that. LeBron, obviously, because of the pandemic, this is the shortest offseason he will ever experience, ever has experienced, ever probably will. 72 days in between Game 6, when the Lakers won the title and beat the Heat, to then they're tipping off opening night against the Clippers in the Staples Center. That's it. 72 days. Obviously, the shortest offseason in NBA. As we know, LeBron James obviously takes care of his body. It's well documented. He spends over $1 million on his body a year to keep it in peak performance and peak shape. As we've seen, it's worked because outside of one groin injury with the Lakers in his first year, he has been on the court basically every night of every game throughout his entire career. He's a machine. He's absolutely a machine. He can be relied upon to play a ton of minutes, get out there and play some of his best basketball. And with that said, even with a short offseason, he's still, despite his age, despite the wear and tear of playing in the bubble, he still has missed 0 games this year. He's played all 29. Speaking of age, let's dive into that because another factor working against LeBron. He's 36 years old. This is his 18th season in the NBA, which is just, that just defies logic. He's spent half of his life in the NBA. Let's also not forget, with all the success LeBron has had, he's played in 260 career playoff games, which is in essence over 3 years worth of regular season games. So tack that on. He's not an 18-year veteran like a normal 18-year veteran is. He's a 21-year veteran. This is in essence, in terms of games played, his 21st season in the NBA. Insanity. And as we mentioned before, because he's missed no games out of the first 29 so far, he is not a load management believer. If he's healthy, he'll be out there. While it's great most of the time, the Lakers have to make sure that this is not to LeBron's detriment. Their biggest concern between now and when Anthony Davis returns is keeping LeBron healthy and preventing him from trying to pick up the slack. That has to be the most important focus. Don't allow LeBron to pick up the slack. Don't allow him to think he has to pick up the slack in Anthony Davis's absence. Because if that happens, to me, that's more worrisome if you're the Lakers than Anthony Davis's Achilles injury. So let's look at the minutes LeBron's playing. So far through the season, through 29 games, he's averaging 34.7 minutes per game. Now, in LeBron standards, that's pretty low. Second lowest of his career, actually. But LeBron minutes of his career doesn't equate to actual NBA minutes for the rest of the league. Because even though it's the second fewest amount of minutes he's playing in a game of his career, 34.7, He's still in the top 20 of minutes played per season in the NBA this year in 2021, really. Second lowest of his career, but he's still top 20 in terms of the most minutes played so far on average per game in 2021. And that number goes up when Anthony Davis has been out. AD so far has missed 6 games throughout this 2020-21 season. In those 6 games, LeBron has averaged 36.3 minutes per game. You extrapolate that out, that is tied for the 4th most minutes per game played in the NBA. And I'm sorry, frankly, that just can't happen. I understand LeBron has been a machine. I understand he has been almost Teflon, if you will, where you just can't take him down injury-wise. He just keeps on coming back, keeps on playing, doesn't get hurt. His muscles he takes care of. But you're playing with fire here, I believe, if you continue to use LeBron at the usage the Lakers have used him when Anthony Davis is not in the game. Just right now, let's go for what it is. LeBron James is more important than Anthony Davis for the Lakers. They need both to win a title. I don't believe if it's one or the other, they will win the NBA title. You need both on the court. But with that said, you don't want one injury with Anthony Davis turning into 2 because you have LeBron trying to play hero ball, taking over and try to lift up this team on his shoulders by himself in AD's absence. So the Lakers are going to have to probably grow a set, to be completely frank. Because LeBron's not going to sit down. Like I said, he's not a load management believer. But if you're a Frank Vogel, if you're even LeBron, you got to realize your health and staying in shape and not getting run down for the playoffs is the most important thing in these 3 weeks to a month when AD is not in the lineup. Because like I said, I think the Lakers are screwed either way if either AD gets hurt and can't return or LeBron gets hurt and can't return. But you need both out there. And you got to ensure that even if Anthony Davis does return healthy towards the end of the year, LeBron is not running to the ground because of the shortest offseason of his career, 72 days. Because so far he hasn't taken a game off despite that, playing all 29 games. Despite the fact that in terms of amount of games played, this is his 21st season in the NBA. And he's not a load management believer. And not to mention, despite all those factors working against him, he is still logging a ton of minutes. Still top 20 in average minutes per game played. He's top 4 when you look at his minutes per game played without Anthony Davis on the floor. So yes, I understand right now Anthony Davis is the player who actually is hurt, who actually is on the sidelines, not playing, actually has a real injury concern. And I understand LeBron James trying to chase another MVP. This is really his shot to do so because without Anthony Davis, LeBron can really put the team on his shoulders, really, rattle off a solid stretch of wins here. And if they do that, I think that will cement the MVP award for LeBron James. As you know, he felt slighted when Giannis won back-to-back last year. He felt he deserved the award. So I'm sure that will be a motivating factor. And LeBron sees that, hey, without AD, this is my time to shine here. Try to, kind of wrap up the MVP maybe even before the All-Star game. The Lakers cannot let that happen. You got to sit down with LeBron. You got to explain to him, man, we need you. I know you've been incredible. And you've been on the court. You've been available to us throughout your entire career. With that said, this year is different. Because even though you spend $1 million on your body, right? That doesn't also help. You don't have the time to recover and relax and refresh. 72 days, no matter how much money you spend on your body, that short turnaround, money can't buy you full health. So his normal routine of off-season workouts can't happen when your off-season is that short. So this is a massive opportunity here. Well, not an opportunity. This is a massive moment here for the Lakers in the next month or so, let's say, without Anthony Davis on the court. You got to ensure that one injury doesn't lead to 2. You got to ensure LeBron recognizes, hey, try to win this game on a Tuesday night. Sure, it's important, but we need you to sit you down maybe an extra 5 minutes or so. If that ends up losing us the game, so be it. Because we got to make sure you are healthy and rested and ready to go come playoff time. Because not only just staying healthy for LeBron, it's also making sure he's ready to go and playing his best self. As we know, too, and as we've seen throughout LeBron's career, He has done an incredibly tremendous job of pacing himself throughout the regular season. Obviously, the goal is always to win a title. LeBron is so naturally gifted, and for the most part, getting to the playoffs is never a question. Right? Unless he's hurt and misses a good amount of time like he did 2 years ago at the Lakers when he hurt his groin, there's no real doubt or question of whether a LeBron James-led team make the playoffs. So he has used the regular season as an opportunity, almost a landing strip, if you will, to gear up and ramp up his game. So by the time April comes around, by the time May comes around, he is feeling his best. He is playing his best. He's not running himself into the ground in the regular season just to make the playoffs. It's a slow ramp up. So sure, he'll have some lull, periods midway through the year. Yeah, maybe he'll, have a bad stretch of games. But he knows what he has to do in order to make sure he's playing his best basketball in April, May, and June. Well, this season, again, is different from that. You don't have your normal offseason. The schedule isn't the same as it used to be. So it's kind of hard to, you're kind of almost playing it on the fly. So it's harder to adjust something you've done for 17 seasons now. All of a sudden, in your 18th year, you got to kind of adjust on the fly. He's able to do it massively last year. And obviously, as we know, having the season stop midway through is tough. And even in the bubble, it didn't really, especially early on in those seeding games, look nowhere like the LeBron we saw in the playoffs. So you can turn flip the switch, if you will, on and off. But you got to make sure that switch is off, man, when Anthony Davis is not out. Because even for the Lakers, I personally don't believe seeding matters too much. They have AD healthy, they have LeBron healthy. You're going to have a great chance against any team in the West. And even if you have some fans in, if we get to that point where the playoffs are allowing some fans, some capacity, it's only going to be 10, maybe at most 20%. So home court is not going to still be a really, truly big factor. That's why, to me, in my mind, health is the most important factor in this, and it's the health of LeBron James. He's going to be the one on the court playing with Kyle Kuzma, playing with Alex Caruso, playing with the rest of the crew. Without his guy, Anthony Davis, you can't let him run himself into the ground. You can't let him chase the MVP and do so be a detriment to where the point in the playoffs he's out of gas. That's why, in my mind, sure, Anthony Davis right now is the one injured. Right now, especially with a serious injury where, hey, the Achilles, you never know. But it's the health of LeBron James that I should be, if I'm the Lakers, more concerned about in this stretch here without AD. And that's what I'm focusing on to make sure he's not overexerting himself in this next month to make sure then he's kind of ready to go for the playoffs. So talk about that with our next guest, James Herbert, CBSSports.com, incredibly talented NBA reporter. Are the Jazz peaking too early? We'll get his thoughts on LeBron and what the Lakers should do. And how about the Jazz? Are they peaking too early? And Steph Curry, should he get MVP consideration? We'll talk to the great NBA reporter, James Herbert. Next, it is the Ryan Hickey Show right here with on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Hi, I'd like to report a bear hug.
Yeah, okay.
Well, we were building a bonfire, and I saw some, dry brush and leaves around, so, I said to move the bonfire somewhere else, and out of nowhere, Smokey Bear shows up and hugs me.
So you noticed some wildfire hazards and moved your bonfire to a safer location.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Smokey, all right. He likes it when people help prevent wildfires. It hits him close to home. Not everybody gets the hug, my friend. So that's pretty special to get a hug from Smokey Bear.
So it was him. Hey, guys, I told you it was Smokey.
Okay, well, congratulations, my friend. And thanks for calling. There are many ways to prevent a wildfire. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
Hope you enjoyed your meal. And I just want to say, he's lucky to have a brother like you.
Lucky? Caring for my brother is far from easy. Waking up every day, lifting him from the bed to the wheelchair to the car to get him to therapy on time, it's no small task between the doctors and the diagnosis, but nothing can disable this love. This is my big brother, my hero. He's part of me, like my arms and legs, so I'll be his. See, there's no time for tired. This starts again tomorrow. He'll be waiting for me. I wake up for him. I know he needs me, but I'm the lucky one, even though I need help now and then.
If you're caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community, or call 877-333-5885. Caregiving Resource Center. Support for your strength. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
People been saying to your friend, get a different face, and posting on their feed, they're super ugly. The things they say to them online are cruel and they're not true. So tell your friend, I'll stand up for you. Don't worry, I know what to do. Oh, tell the world I see with an emoji to stop the bullies.
Know someone who's being bullied online? Send the witness emoji. It looks like an eye in a speech bubble, and it's in the symbol section near the clocks in your phone. You'll let the world know it isn't cool, and you'll let your friend know you care. Learn more about the witness emoji at eyewitnessbullying.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
It may be hard to believe, but people just like you are already saving money. Feedthepig.org makes it easy. Their simple savings plan teaches you how to start saving without going overboard. So you don't need to mooch off your friends.
You gonna finish that grape?
You mean the one in my mouth?
You don't need to stop buying the necessities.
What you're smelling is a natural musk.
Ew.
You don't need to be a medical test subject.
How do you feel?
Mostly okay. Sometimes, though.
You don't need to get a second job as a stuntman.
We need a new stuntman. Let's break for lunch.
You just need an internet connection. Don't get left behind. Start your personal savings plan with the tips and tools on feedthepig.org. That way, you don't need to sell your soul to the devil.
$15 is the best I can do.
All right, deal.
Brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Welcome back to the Ryan Hickey Show, right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It is the Ryan Hickey Show with you until 11 a.m. Eastern, right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Talking a lot of NBA. Very excited to welcome in our next guest, a tremendously talented NBA reporter for CBSSports.com. Outside the NBA is where you can find him on Twitter. It is James Herbert. James, how you doing this morning? Thanks so much for the time.
I'm doing well. Thank you for that intro.
Oh, of course. You are you well deserved. Absolutely, for sure. We don't lie here on the Ryan Hickey Show. So truth only, and you deserve those compliments for sure. So James, we'll start with the hottest team in the NBA right now, right? Utah Jazz win again last night, 20 wins out of the last 21 games. Are they peaking? Are they peaking too soon in your mind, or can they carry this kind of level of play into the playoffs?
I mean, I don't know that they will still look this dominant in the playoffs, but I think the style of play, sure. And I think they have played so well so far that you have to kind of put them in that top tier, I think, to keep it going without Conley the way that they have when he was so crucial to their success early on. I think, depending on how you value what he was bringing consistently versus, what Gobert was bringing at the time. Like, there was an argument that Conley was their most important player early on in this season where Donovan Mitchell had a little bit of a more inconsistent start. And they've just been absolutely rolling without him. I think it's a testament to the depth they have on this roster, the different playmaking options that they have. I mean, Jordan Clarkson is like far and away the leader in terms of the sixth man of the year race, if you can even call it a race right now. And I mean, you look at the kind of defense that they're playing, like we all see the offense, right? Like, they are playing differently than they have in prior years. They're playing faster. They're shooting more threes. They're honestly like a much more exciting team to watch this year. But I mean, that they are playing this kind of defense when so much is asked of Rudy Gobert. I mean, his job is one of the hardest ones in the entire league. He has been one of the best defenders in the NBA for years. But I think when you look at this roster, like, he is carrying an extremely heavy load, and it is just working. Like, everything that they are doing is working right now. They are playing beautiful basketball. They are completely in sync on both ends. They're far more than the sum of their parts. And I think also, like, the value of those individual parts is, like, pretty high. Like, some of us forget when they got Conley, they added Bogdanovic. This is not last off season, but the previous one. A lot of us were talking them up as, like, potential contenders, and it was sort of an uneven season last year. But the roster is even better than it was then because they brought in Clarkson, they brought back Favors, and now that everything is clicking and they've made some sort of stylistic tweaks, I mean, it looks even better than I think really probably they themselves even envisioned when they put this thing together.
Is there one thing you could point to kind of that unlock this team? Because like you said, the style is a little different. They're shooting more threes or knocking down more threes. But, is there one thing maybe you could point to maybe from last year where you said it was an inconsistent kind of ride for them? Unfortunately, Don Mitchell really stepped up in the bubble. It was a first round exit for them. They blew that 3-1 lead. Is there something you could point to, maybe just one thing that is different from the Jazz this year than last year? Or is it just a combination of things where everything's kind of, like you said, rolling in the right direction right now?
I think it's two things, but we haven't seen them both at the same time. Like, the first thing is going into the bubble last year, some of these tweaks that we're seeing now, like, that's when they started. And it was actually more of a reaction to them not having Bojan Bogdanovic than anything else. Like, I think Quinn Snyder has talked about this. He talked about it going into the bubble about how, Bogdanovic last year was one of their most important players. He was their most reliable, their best shooter going into that. And they had to make up for some of his 3-point attempts that they were just going to lose. They were not going to be as sort of deep of a team, and they were not going to have him as a weapon. So they were kind of trying to figure out, okay, how can we maintain our offense, especially against, another high-powered offense in the first round of the playoffs once they got there. But, I mean, you saw it even in the seeding games. They started to play a little faster. They started taking threes earlier, and I think basically what happened this year is, like, that kind of worked in the bubble, so they gained more belief in that. And then when you add Bogdanovic to that mix, that changes everything, because now you have pristine spacing. They're not a 5-out team. Clearly, they are playing Gobert or Favors the entire game, but they always have one of those guys putting pressure on the rim. And then they have 4 guys who are shooting 40% from three or higher on catch and shoot threes on the perimeter. And they've just been scorching all season long. And it's just an incredibly difficult formula to stop. And we really haven't seen any team figure it out over the course of the season. They are playing with extreme confidence. They know what they're doing works. Certain things that haunted them last year just haven't been an issue. I mean, Royce O'Neal has just had this incredible season. He was, like, pretty damn good in the regular season last year, but in the playoffs, I thought he kind of lost his confidence. He was a hesitant shooter. He was turning down some shots he was making earlier in the year. He wasn't shooting that well in the shots that he did take. And now he's just, like, he's been unconscious the entire season, like pretty much any other perimeter player who sees the floor for the Jazz. So it is all working. And I think it's a combination of, like, how they were playing in the bubble, plus now they actually have Bogdanovic in the picture again. And I was going to say they have their full rotation, but they actually haven't, because they haven't had Conley lately. But they have just kept rolling.
Yeah, they have kept rolling for sure. That's what we'll call 20 wins in 21 games. Just an incredible stretch by the Jazz. Talking to James Herbert, CBSSports.com, NBA reporter outside the NBA on Twitter is where you can find James and all of his work. So one of the biggest, we'll say, roadblocks, or one of the biggest, hurdles that the Jazz have to clear if they want to make the finals is, as we know, the defending champion Los Angeles Lakers. Maybe an obvious question. I'll ask you, James. Do the Lakers have any shot to win the title if Anthony Davis is out?
I would say no if he is out in the playoffs. No, I mean, I don't think they have that kind of margin for error.
Mm-hmm.
He does so much for them. It's on both ends of the court. I like when he is at the top of his game on any given night, he can look like the best player in the entire league. During the playoffs last year, I mean, he was shooting the ball like he was Kevin Durant, and he was, like, absolutely the best defensive player in the playoffs. And he was just completely ruining other teams' game plans making, honestly, like if you go back and look at like that Houston series, a lot of us were going into that series thinking this is a team that could cause significant problems for the Lakers, and we had seen it in the regular season that small ball had made them really uncomfortable, and like I was very excited for that series. And then, you know, a couple games in, like Anthony Davis starts just roaming around. They're kind of playing pretty much a zone, and he is just completely wrecking everything that the Rockets are trying to do. And I mean, we saw him have that kind of effect on opposing offenses throughout the playoffs, and that's to say nothing of the shots he was making in the half court, some of which he wasn't making at as high a rate during the regular season. So I think their hope of repeating is that he gets back to that level, is healthy, and then the supporting cast is even better than last season, which I think, like, on that front, I would feel really good if I were a Lakers fan, because I do think it is a more balanced team, and I do think even with the Jazz playing this well, if everybody's healthy, I would still pick the Lakers. Like, I think they do have the best team, but no, they don't have the kind of margin for error that they would be fine if they lost an MVP candidate.
I'm totally with you, James. So that kind of leads to my next question, because we just talked about on the show leading into this interview was that obviously, you know, AD is going to be out. I trust that the Lakers will keep him out probably even longer than maybe they should to ensure that he's healthy for the playoffs, especially with an Achilles. You learn from Kevin Durant. You don't want to rush that back too soon. But with that said, if he's out for 3 weeks, a month, maybe even 6 weeks, let's just say on the most, you know, cautious end, are you concerned at all about the workload on LeBron James' shoulders? You know, if you take the playoff games into account, this is like his 21st season in the NBA in terms of, you know, games played. Shortest offseason of his career. He's 36 years old. He's playing more minutes, obviously without AD on the floor, and that's going to be the case now for the next, you know, month or so. Are you concerned at all that maybe this could wear down LeBron, either on the injury front, just wear him down to where he's exhausted come playoff time, and that maybe, I know he's never been a load management, you know, believer or truther, if you will, before, but maybe that's in the best interest of for his career in this stretch, at least without Anthony Davis on the floor.
Yeah, I think typically, like, I would say yes. I would always be concerned about something like that. I think like load management has come to the fore for a reason. Minutes matter. The minutes matter, especially when you are playing in high leverage situations, when you are working hard on both ends. Like, you know, the last couple of years, like LeBron has been really bringing it on the defensive end in a way that he wasn't always in prior regular seasons, for you know, for understandable reasons, right? So I think in general, my answer to that question is like, yeah, it's going to be harder. He's already playing more minutes than I personally anticipated he would be like averaging coming into the year. I also thought he might get some nights off on back-to-backs, and like the Lakers have not done that. LeBron has not wanted to do that. I think he wants MVP, by the way. So that might factor into it, right? But on the other hand, it's like I in a typical situation, that would be my line of thinking. And then I hear those words coming out of my mouth, and I'm like, but this is LeBron. He is the exception to every rule. Nobody has ever done what he is doing at his age. He spends a whole ton of money, like of his own money, like on you know, fancy technology and equipment to keep his body in its optimal condition. The Lakers have a good training staff. Like, if anyone can pull this off and be no worse for the wear, it is LeBron James. So it's like, yeah, like my general approach to this is if you have a superstar in his mid to late 30s, you don't do what the Lakers are doing. But also, we've never seen, really, I guess with the possible exception of like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, like we haven't seen anyone even in LeBron's stratosphere in terms of level of production after this many minutes in the NBA, just in the history of the sport. And so I don't know what, like we don't really have any priors here. So if LeBron is confident with what they're doing, like he probably has reason to be. So I feel like somewhat foolish applying my like normal standards when analyzing the situation.
Jay, I totally agree, because like I said, I kind of made the argument, like I think that, you know, the Lakers kind of should sit LeBron and really, you know, kind of for the first time in his career do something he's not comfortable in doing and restricting his minutes. But because you're right, it's like almost like a, you know, a mind versus, you know, heart sort of thing, where in your heart it says, all right, it's LeBron James. It's almost like the trump card, and it's similar to the NFL with Tom Brady. It's like, all right, eventually Tom Brady is going to slow down. Eventually he's going to hit a wall. We've never seen someone of his age continue to play the way he is, and yet again he's just won a 7th Lombardi Trophy just a few weeks ago. So it's the same thing with LeBron. It's like, all right, there's no way in the shortest offseason at his age, all the miles on his legs, like you said, no, he hasn't taken a day off yet, which you thought you would. He's still playing a high amount of minutes. With Anthony Davis out, he's playing like 36 minutes a game. Like, there's no way that he can be able to sustain this. But at the same time, then it's like in your mind, you're like, well, it's LeBron James. So it's like, what are we, it defies logic. It is, he is one of those guys that just doesn't make any sense. And he has figured out the sauce for sure. Outside the NBA and Twitter is where you can find James Herbert. He's a CBS Sports NBA reporter. So looking at the East, James, obviously the big three in Brooklyn, I think it's safe to say so far has had more success than maybe anticipated, or maybe I should say this way. They've gelled faster than I thought they would have personally. Do you feel the same way? Can this harmony that they've had so far continue through the rest of the season?
I think, yeah, it can. But I didn't have that many concerns about them from a fit perspective on offense. I had the same questions everybody did, but I just sort of thought there's enough shooting here and there's enough talent here that they'll figure it out. And by the way, they'll be motivated to. They weren't forced into this situation. They all wanted to play together. They don't have to play exactly the way that they did in prior teams. We've seen to some extent, they hadn't been on a team quite like this before, because I'm not sure there has ever been a team quite like this before. But they have all played with other superstars before in different situations. So I was pretty optimistic on that front. I think I have been encouraged, certainly, by the way that they've sort of figured out roles, considering they've barely played together, just by virtue of how this thing is played out, and Durant missing all the time they did, and Kyrie was out still at the beginning after Harden got there. So it's been, like it's been for a lot of teams around the league, Brooklyn has just been seemingly dealing with a different starting lineup, a different rotation on almost a night-to-night basis. And they've just had to roll with these punches. They haven't, like every other team, again, hardly any practice time. And I think when they have had the opportunity to practice, they are far more concerned about the defensive end than they are about figuring out what they're doing on the offensive end, for very good reason. So I think the chemistry there has been impressive when you consider all that. I thought it was notable the other day that Kyrie Irving came out and said that, he said to James Harden, you're the point guard. That's how this is going to work. And I think, just from watching them, you could tell that was how they were playing this. But I wasn't necessarily expecting to hear those words come out of Kyrie Irving's mouth. So that is interesting, and obviously encouraging. And they've been pretty much unstoppable when they are on the court together. And even when one of those guys has been out, they have been impressive. And I loved the way they came back the other night against Phoenix, and it was the Harden show. But I thought that was, a unique circumstance, a little bit lucky in some respects, but impressive. It showed some resilience. This is a team that is playing a lot of guys in lineups that have, specifically in that game, that just had not played together all season. So they're dealing with a lot of stuff, and everybody has the same questions about what the defense is going to look like come playoff time. But I think we've already seen them against good teams kind of rise to the occasion on offense and just get buckets and just look extremely difficult to defend. And the problem honestly has mainly been against teams that are much worse than them. I think they're 8-1 in nationally televised games, which tells you something. They get up for those big matchups. And it's just kind of been they're going in a random game, no fans in the arena, against a team that doesn't have as much talent as them, because almost none of these teams have as much talent as them. But sometimes they don't get up for those games, and they're not quite as sharp as they need to be defensively. And if they don't make enough plays, then you end up in a shootout, and they have the talent to win those, obviously, but they're not going to win all of them. So, I don't think this is mind-blowing stuff, but I'm interested to see if they can establish a consistent defensive identity like they've been preaching all year, but in terms of the offense, I mean, it has been what kind of I expected, and maybe a little bit more when you consider the challenges that they face.
I know it's so early, James. Safe to say, though, the Nets are the team to beat in the East in your minds?
I probably, like, I don't disagree with that statement exactly. Like, I think they are the biggest matchup problem of any team in the East. I would not want to face them in like any circumstance if I were, say, the Bucks or the Sixers, or like, I don't know if you want to put the Celtics in that conversation, the Heat in that conversation. If those teams can get their act together between now and the end of the regular season, like, I would obviously be hoping that some other team would take them out, and that my path to the finals would not involve having to deal with like those guys. Plus, oh, by the way, there's Joe Harris on the weak side who, like, it's not even like we have an option to just not help off of him. You have to, because you can't just not send help when James Harden or Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving is initiating the offense. It's just, you have to then trust your rotations to not give up a wide open Joe Harris three that's going to go in more than half the time. So I think they have not been like good enough defensively for me to say they're definitively the best team. But you know, like, by the way, the Milwaukee Bucks have not been this dominant defensive team that they have been in years past either. So it is not as if I have a great answer for you as to who the favorites would be. If not them, the Sixers have been the best team so far, but it's not as if we don't have questions about them either, particularly I think in terms of their second unit and what that will look like come playing time and who they can kind of get away with playing. So, you know, it feels early to me to declare anyone like a cut above the rest. I want to see what some of these teams can figure out before the trade deadline and even in the buyout market, because these are the teams will be kind of competing against each other for those guys. Boston has a massive trade exception they might use. Brooklyn has a smaller one and a disabled player exception with the Spencer Dinwiddie injury. So I think there are a bunch of teams that have moves to make. But like, if you're telling me you look at the way Brooklyn has played on offense and they're your favorite to go to the finals, like, I mean, Draymond Green called them the team to beat after playing them. Like, I don't disagree with that.
It is, especially the East. It is very muddled at the top. It should be, especially if the Bucks can kind of turn it around. It would be a lot of fun. Kind of see like a Sixers, Bucks, Nets three-headed match to see who comes out of that in the East. Two more quick questions here for you for talking James Herbert, CBS Sports, like I'm NBA reporter. Just how much does team record impact the MVP vote? Because ESPN did a straw poll last week, you know, early, again, very early, understand. But Steph was 7th in that just one first place vote. And you look at his numbers are close to what he's setting, you know, career highs in 2015, 2016 when he was the MVP. But I think it's the record of the Warriors because they're in that 7-8 range. How much does team record impact your vote personally for a player's MVP candidacy?
It impacts it some, but I think it's contextual. Like, I don't think you hold every player to the same standard. I don't think it is simply a matter of picking the best player on the best team, because if it were, we would be debating whether it's Mike Conley, Rudy Gobert, or Donovan Mitchell right now, and that's not the conversation that everybody's having. I don't mean to be glib about it, but like, there is a like reason why the Warriors are like 19th in offense or whatever when Steph is on the court, and then like worse than the worst offense in the league by far when he's off the court. Like, he is still doing like basically like heroic work to drag this team to where it is, even though where it is nowhere near championship contention. Like, to me, in a lot of ways, what he has done this season is just as impressive as what he did in 2015-16. And I don't say that lightly, because that's arguably the best regular season that anyone has ever had in the history of the game. Like, from a statistical perspective, like it was absolutely nuts. And I think now, like, some of the stats are similar. Some are not quite as impressive, but I think the degree of difficulty is just inarguably higher. He is having to create more of his own offense. He is obviously running more pick and rolls than he ever did. He is taking more contact. He is having to deal with like far inferior spacing. He's having to deal with teams. You know, he always attracted a lot of attention, but he wasn't seeing box and one coverage in the regular season on a regular basis, like, or really at all.
Yeah.
Until until now. And that's partially a result of like, oh, hey, this worked against a depleted Warriors team in the finals 2 years ago. And it's partially a result of like, all right, you're going to put out this lineup with Steph and like 4 guys who can't shoot. Obviously, we're going to play a box of one. Like, that just makes sense. So, I mean, the fact that he is seemingly able to find his rhythm at will, regardless of what is going on around him, the fact that over the course of the season, you have seen this. And again, it depends on the opponent. Against like elite defenses, it's harder for them to get to this level. But like in general, you have seen that the team learn how to play with him. Guys who have historically been viewed as not super intuitive players who have spent their whole careers playing in like, you know, pretty unsophisticated like offensive systems where it's predicated on just running high ball screens and spacing the floor. They're now operating in like Steve Kerr's like Warrior system that he had been running with Draymond and Iguodala and Livingston and Steph and Clay screening for each other. And it's not the same when it's Steph and Brad Wanamaker screening for each other. It's not the same when when you don't have those sort of veterans who just make the correct read every single time. And to see the role players improving and to see the system looking better, to see the Warriors force stretches at least in every game looking like the Warriors, like that has been really fun to watch. And I think that is a testament to a coaching staff sticking to its guns somewhat in the face of this sort of withering criticism at the start of the season. But it's really a testament to Steph probably working harder on offense than any player in the NBA when you take into account just the sheer amount that he is running, the increased offensive load on him, and the degree of difficulty of the shots that he's taking. It's wild. So this is me making the Steph for MVP argument, but it is also not me saying that I would necessarily vote him first. I think you can have a good conversation about Embiid, Jokic, LeBron, Steph, and then maybe after that we could talk about does the best player on the best team, which to me is Rudy Gobert, does he deserve to be at the end of your MVP ballot, or would you rather give it to somebody like a Damian Lillard who is also like Steph on kind of a decent team right now and dealing with like very imperfect circumstances? But yeah, I think obviously like team record comes into it when you're discussing the context of the stats that you're seeing, but it does not by any stretch mean that Steph Curry should be like 7th or 8th or outside of the picture here. He's been out of this world.
So, James, I'm 100% with you. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. Just 7th. It's like, you're right. Like he is working harder than ever. The numbers are even more impressive because you're right. It's either him or Kelly Oubre. Who do defenses want taking the 3? That's an easy answer. And he's still working to get his shot and get enough. Finally here, James, I want to end with this because I'm confused. Maybe you can add some clarity here. Obviously, Draymond Green's comments about, the double standard with teams and players, specifically when it comes to trade talks, got a lot of play this week. LeBron James essentially backed it up earlier this week as well. I'm just curious. Do you get what Draymond Green is saying, at least in terms of specific, when it comes to players and teams talking about trades? I guess my thing is, I don't understand what more teams could do to cater to players when it comes to trades. Like, we haven't seen a player demand a trade and not get traded. So, like, I guess from Draymond's perspective, like, what is he upset about? Or what could, I guess, teams do to have him be happy that the playing field is, I guess, level when it comes to trade talks?
I didn't take it as him being mad at teams per se, aside from like specifically being mad about teams leaking stuff to the media. The way I took it was Draymond Green's frustration with kind of like the way things work, and being annoyed, frankly, with people like us and the way that we talk about this stuff. And like, to me, like it's interesting because Draymond has been sometimes a very vocal critic of of the media, while also being extremely generous to the media and being moonlighting as a media member himself. And by the way, being incredible at it. Like
100%.
If he wants a job on Inside, I'm sure he will walk right into it because when he's a guest on that show, he's amazing. But the way I saw it is he saw like sort of a double standard that if he were to go to the media and say, I want out, trade me, he would immediately be fined lots of money. So we had this ridiculous sort of show in Houston that he was referring to earlier this year where we all knew Harden wanted out, but he couldn't technically say it until he did, and the whole thing blew up at the end. He went through like dozens of media availabilities and said basically nothing. You can't address it. It's the elephant in the room. But there are these weird rules where we can all know that this thing is so, and yet the players cannot acknowledge it as such. And I think it's a little bit awkward. And I think the criticism that Draymond sees players getting for, basically dogging it, or, their heart's not in it or whatever. And it's not doesn't necessarily take into account the sort of human aspect of it. Like, I think what he was trying to get at was like, yeah, like, okay, look at the Andre Drummond situation. I think we could all look at that and like see his play is not what it was in his last 5 games that he played for the Cavs versus what he was doing in the first 5 games of the regular season. A completely different guy, right? Right. And I think from his perspective, it's like, well, why should it be the same? Because the team has basically told him, you're not part of our plans. We have traded for another player that plays your position, and now you are not allowed to do your job, basically. And now he's literally not allowed to do his job. Like he is just not playing.
But
everybody
knows specific instance, right, James? Because he referenced, like I said, it seems like, I could be wrong here. It sounds like the Draymond or the Drummond situation specifically was the thing that kind of set him off into starting this rant. But to your point, they're sitting, like the Cavs are sitting him down. They're not asking him to go out there knowing a trade is looming. It's, hey, we're going to trade you, so we're going to sit you until we can figure this out and do you with like, isn't that doing right by the player in that instance? Am I missing something there?
Yeah, I don't think that it is wrong for the Cavs to act in their own best interest, and I don't think it was really in Andre Drummond's best interest for them to keep parading him out there playing next to Jared Allen.
Right.
Like that was a disaster, and we all knew that was going to be a disaster when they were trying that. But again, like what I would say is I don't think Draymond was exactly criticizing just the Cleveland Cavaliers and them wanting to make the move that is best for their organization. I think what was bothering him was kind of the dynamics and what he saw as a double standard. And that's all I would say is like, we can talk about like whether or not like he is right. I agreed with some of what he said, not 1,000% of it. But I don't think it was just a matter of like, oh, players should not be able to hold a guy out, or like the Cleveland Cavaliers have done Andre Drummond wrong. I think what Draymond saw were a bunch of reports that referred to Drummond's attitude and Drummond's like, poor play in recent games leading to this. And I think, not to put words in his mouth, but I think he was sort of alluding to this being like, well, why should he have a good attitude about this? Why would you expect him to give everything he has to this organization when they don't care about him anymore and he's not in their plans, right? So I think that was what, that's how I read it. But I can certainly understand if you saw those quotes and you thought he was just mad at the Cavs. But I don't think it was so much about the Cavs in a literal sense as much as he was mad about this sort of dynamic.
Okay, that's fair. I took it more in a literal sense. But if it is about the fines, and I would agree with Draymond about the fines. Like if teams are basically going to say, yeah, we're going to trade Andre Drummond, we're going to trade Blake Griffin, we're going to sit you guys down, then don't find the players either. I would agree that is something I could get Draymond behind. But yeah, at least in my sense, I took it maybe too literally and kind of missed the overall message that he was sending for sure. That's a good insight. Outside the NBA is where you can find James Herbert. CBSSports.com is the website where James writes for the NBA. James, really do appreciate you. Very gracious. I apologize for keeping you so long, but thank you so much for the great info.
No, I had a great time. Thanks for having me.
And that is James Herbert again, CBSSports.com, NBA reporter outside the NBA on Twitter. Interesting, because I will admit that Draymond lost me in a lot of what he said. It's about almost a 3-minute rant. And literally, is the way I personally took it was about, he was upset that, and he started off his entire rant by basically discussing how Cavaliers, ran Andre Drummond out there, then all of a sudden took him out, in warm-ups and put him in street clothes, basically said, yeah, we're going to trade you. He's upset about that. But if it is about the fines, I would agree. I would agree with Draymond on that, sure. Not fair for players to get fined talking about trades or demanding, hey, I would like trade. And then you have the teams on the other end basically openly saying, yeah, we're going to trade this guy. We don't have a partner yet, but we're just going to sit him down. We're going to, in the process of trading him, and try to find a partner. So I'll agree with Draymond there. But outside of that, I really don't know what else teams are supposed to do or could do to make the situation. There's like nothing else. Every player, if they get traded, even if they demand a trade but do it internally, they get traded. If they leak it out to the media and unofficially they can't talk about it, but it ends up coming out. I try to rack my brain. Try to find one instance where players have unofficially come out and said, I want to trade, and they weren't able, or it wasn't granted, I should say. Doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. So that was a good conversation there by James. We do appreciate his time. And I feel really, it took him a very, very, very long time. But it was great info. Absolutely great info. We do appreciate James for hopping on and giving us a few minutes. So I'll do it for this edition of the Ryan Hickey Show right here on the Worldwide Sports Network. Hopefully, especially here in the Northeast, stay safe. Snow is coming down. I already saw someone fishtail coming over here. So hopefully the roads are not too bad. If you're in Texas, we hope you're okay. We hope you're doing well. Obviously down there, it's even worse with unexpected snow and not really having the resources to move the snow, like at least we do up here in the Northeast and areas that are used to getting some snowfall. Hopefully you're staying safe. Hopefully you're not sick of the snow like I am. I really hate to sound old, by the way, but man, I was driving in here today just kind of realizing like you kind of hit that age where I am just sick of the snow. I hear snow and now it's just like a groan. It's more something that I'm dreading more than looking forward to like you were in school or even in college. Oh, maybe school will get canceled. Class get canceled, go outside, play in the snow. I hate to admit that I am old and kind of like a grumpy old man now, but that is the case. I hate the snow. All it does is cause problems, agitation, more issues. And I apologize for coming, or becoming that old guy, but that was a reflection. It was a depressing moment. I can't lie. Sitting in the car, realizing, man, that's when you're really starting to come like the get off my lawn kind of guy. But yeah, hopefully you're staying safe with the snow. Hopefully it's not too much of an hindrance and you can get about your day safe and sound. So stay warm, stay safe. As a heads up, we will put this on Twitter. No show on Monday. Speaking of snow, your boy, we are going skiing. Hopefully come back not in the body cast. If we don't have a show on Monday, you'll know the skiing, or I'm sorry, if we don't have a show on Thursday, the ski trip did not go well. Your boy's rolling down the mountain instead of skiing down the mountain. But so no show on Monday. We'll be back on Thursday on the Worldwide Sports Network. So stay safe, stay sane, have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next Thursday right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.